This year has been kind of weird. Like, it's July, so much has happened, don't get me wrong, but like, nothing has happened. What happened to January through, well, June? What the heck is this? What is time? Is that still a thing? Is this just what happens when you start college? There used to be signifiers of the changing of the times, but this year's just felt so flat. And I say all of this just to say that it has been an amazing year for pop culture, as we'll see throughout the video. I do have a lot to talk about, so I'm not gonna waste time. I'm gonna try and keep each thing short and sweet and spicy, so without further ado, let's just get right into it. My half-year roundup and my recommendations. First and foremost, let's get into my personal realm of knowledge, the movies of this year. And now as I enter my third year of publicly releasing my rankings of the year's movies, I've realized that the first half of the year is hands down always, and I hate to say always, but always gonna be worse than the second half of the year. At least hopefully, because the first half, while there are some bangers, is not doing it so far. But then again, I also do have a lot more I gotta watch, and my end of the year list will most definitely be much more refined than this one. This video is a bit different, as I'm gonna just go through everything that I've watched and probably not 10-second review them, but just quickly review them. Surprisingly, I've actually only seen 16 2022 releases so far. Starting at the bottom, Windfall was hands down one of the biggest disappointments of the year. With a solid Hitchcockian premise, a great cast, and just potential, it just falls so flat as a ride. It's genuinely just kind of horrible if a 90-minute film could still have like half of the content cut out. The Adam Project and Chip and Dale are two movies that just kind of are in today's atmosphere. Like, they're not horrible, they're definitely not as hateable as some of their sibling projects that are more obvious cash grabs with little to no attention put into them, but they also both have nothing very memorable, and they're both kind of just movies that have such a clear and existing peak that they kind of become, I hate to say this about any artistic projects, but they just kind of useless in the grand scheme of things. Spiderhead is a really good movie for 2 acts and then becomes Windfall for the third. Hemsworth and Teller are really good though. I Want You Back is just the most rom-com. It's a nice evening if you're into rom-coms, but if not, there's not too much use in watching it. Rise is what I call a great movie to show your kids. It's the most Disney Channel, non-Disney Channel movie, and it has a solid message. Just don't go in expecting anything crazy. It's a generic feel-good movie about one of the most beloved athletes in the world right now. Fresh is the first movie I would actually recommend to my viewers that have absolutely no idea what the movie is about, just as I did going in. Just so you can experience a certain moment about 40 minutes into the film that in and of itself made the movie worth watching. From that point on though, it does become much more generic, but never bad, an enthralling experience for 30% of the movie and an average experience for the rest. Turning Red is one of those rare films that I have genuinely zero opinions on, and now that I think about it, that might be a bad thing. I watched the Harry Potter reunion and that was cool to see as a fan of the Harry Potter films. Multiverse of Madness was low-key kinda bad, but in a good way, and for everybody that's like, what does that mean? I don't know. As a whole, I just think the marketing for this movie was bad because a lot of people, including me, were expecting No Way Home type stuff, and I think that the film suffers a bit from that. The move from being scheduled before No Way Home to after and the script changes that came with that are obvious, but Sam Raimi mid-key saves the movie just by adding some pizzazz and making that second act really good. I personally messed with Hustle. It's definitely not as good as some claim, but it was good nonetheless. Definitely would recommend to basketball fans and Adam Sandler fans, which I am both. Apollo 10.5 is a movie that I would once again conditionally recommend to Linklater fans or anybody that likes the idea of nostalgia, not as a method of connecting with the movie itself as a personal, yo, I live that kind of thing, because most of my audience is well below the age of the time period covered here, but more in the same way that most Linklater movies tackle nostalgia. As a concept rather than an emotional attachment, I like the method of storytelling here. It was cool and kept me enthralled when it came to learning about some of the most Caucasian shit ever. I really like The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I think that this is my first all-around recommendation so far. I think the general masses would find this movie funny, and while the plot is a bit reductive and very reminiscent of a lot of non-superhero mainstream fare nowadays, the film is executed in a very enjoyable manner. Also, check out my Nick Cage video, is a banger. The Batman was built different, like it was good, like it was really good. I thought the ending was kind of bad, and I don't think people have been talking about how underwhelming the ending is, but outside of that, Matt Reeves made another great movie in my opinion, where everything from the acting to the cinematography to the score is on point. Highly recommend. Also check out my multiple villains video where I talk about the Batman. Top Gun Maverick I already reviewed, and it's still good. It also passed $1 billion at the box office, which makes the first 20 seconds of my review sound kind of stupid. 4 stars 5-star recommendation. Genius was one of the best things I've seen in a while. While it isn't crazy on a general technical level, the fact that this exists is insane and it came together so well. There are so many things about Genius that blow my mind before we even talk about the content. Even if you hate Kanye, this is worth watching, and I'm just gonna save the rest for my end of the year list, which this will most definitely make. Can't recommend more. Well, actually, I can recommend something more. Everything Everywhere is just about everything that is chalked up to be, and just go watch it if you haven't. One of the funniest movies I've seen in the past 5 years, and only really paralleled as a multiverse movie by the two with these spiders. Moving on to La Televisión, I'm just gonna go in order of the shows I watched so far. Peacemaker season 1 was really good at the moment. Some of the best television action scenes and team dynamics of the year. A better story than I thought it would have, and an intro that grew on me over time. Having Gunn direct a lot of the episodes really helps the scene of the show and give it that clear directorial stamp that the best of the directors give to their projects. Once I finished the show, I probably would have given it an 8 out of 10. It took risks, it landed on a lot of them, but I also haven't thought about Peacemaker a single time since finishing it, so take from that what you may. Still would give it a conditional recommendation for action junkies or superhero / DC fanatics. Pam and Tommy was a miniseries that was good for roughly 3 episodes, and it really just kind of went through the motions from there on. It's a movie that was stretched out for 376 minutes, and the completionist in me just had to finish it. The performers are really good though. Euphoria season 2 definitely was a thing that happened this year. I binged all of season 1 and caught up just before the last episode dropped, and I really do regret nothing, even if I don't believe myself. Season 1 was probably like a 8 out of 10. While I'm not a Sam Levinson fan, I definitely thought he wrote a great first season. The 2 episodes in the middle were okay, and the first half of season 2 was also pretty good. That one episode where Zendaya is just running is probably the best episode of the show, period. But like, what really happened in this season? Everything that was wrong here is some of what was wrong with Malcolm and Marie. Go check out that video if you haven't. A lot of these storylines just feel like stuff happening without purpose. I am running a bit long on this one, so I'll just say Euphoria is probably the perfect 2022 TikTok era show. Firstly, it has Zendaya, and secondly, it has that equivalency to Stranger Things, which I'll never watch, in that it hooks the masses for such a short period of time and then is thrown away as if it never existed until it pops back up again the following year. And that doesn't make the show bad. That doesn't make either of these shows bad by any means. I mean, I watched the whole thing of Euphoria, but I do think it impacts what shows and to an extent what movies aim to be nowadays, at least ones that already have masses on a hook. There were points like the entire last episode that just feel like they were there to shock and aggravate and stir unnecessary conversation rather than having an actual purpose in the grand story. But then again, I am just a hater. Moving on to Moon Knight season 1. I don't care. Yeah, I just don't care. Winning Time season 1, on the other hand, I do highly recommend it for anybody, not just basketball fans, because some of the basketball stuff here isn't even that accurate. Winning Time is just a vibrant show which I really hope continues to be as good as it was this season in future seasons. From beginning to end, the character dynamics are interesting, and as a show about a man trying to make a successful business, and also one about an all-time great athlete becoming that all-time great athlete, I couldn't ask for much more. Atlanta season 3 just might be the most difficult thing I've ever talked about, and not just from a it's talking about race perspective, just from a genuine how good is this thing really perspective. There were some episodes where I finished it and said to myself, this is why this was probably the best show on television in 2018 or 19 or whenever season 2 came out. But then there were episodes that made me think, no, this is just unnecessary and deceptive. The whole make something black and white and it's deep and good now thing. Simplifying my thoughts though, I liked all but one of the non-anthology episodes, meaning whenever we were actually with the group, and from there all of the anthology episodes were hit or miss. 3 Slaps was good, The Big Payback was on the nose but also kind of good, Trini to the Bone was alright, and Rich Wigga Poor Wigga was low-key kind of atrocious. As for the finale, I thought it was also a bit hit or miss, but more hit than miss. As a whole, this season was good, probably the worst season so far, but still solid, maybe like a 6 or a 7, but not definitively. I don't really know, this is a tough one to talk about. Barry though is my second biggest recommendation of this entire video. Barry is the best live action show on television and was somehow able to get better than the already stellar first 2 seasons. The writing is just so top tier and ironic and funny and good and dark, and everything that it's supposed to be is just so good. Please watch this show, I know you won't regret it, especially once you get to the season finale for this one, which is just, The Boys Diabolical, on the other hand, is not good. This is another anthology thing that was really hit or miss, and at this point I think I'm just gonna make a cut take about this. Not this, but the whole anthology things. With that said, I'm gonna quickly talk about the show The Boys, which I just watched the season finale approximately 2 hours ago, and while I'm still processing on that and will most likely have released or will release a solo video on that, which you should definitely check out, I will say that the show is a 8.5 out of 10. It had the opportunity to overtake Barry as my live action show of the year so far, but it just barely missed out. With all of that said, I'm sure some of you caught on to the fact that I've been stressing Barry and The Boys as some of the best live action shows of the year, and that's because a little thing called Attack on Titan exists, and earlier in the year season 4 part 2 was released. That's it. I genuinely don't need to explain anything else. Just go watch the show. This isn't a request, like watch it. You, Zachary, Negro, Zachary, go watch it. Subtitles, nah, Negro, go and watch it. Now pause the video right now and go watch it. Also, while it's paused, you should probably go down and subscribe. Yeah, you're back, right? Yeah, Zach, you're welcome. Now for the albums of the year, I'll do the same thing as I did for the shows. First up is Dawn FM, which was the first album I heard and maybe still the best. I'm not sure. This is just such a good album in the most good way possible. There really just isn't much bad about this. The Weeknd gave us a great thematically resonant concept album which spoke to me on many levels. My opening spiel in this video was about time and my feelings around time just kind of passing by right now, and man, could this album not be more resonant for me. Dawn FM has everything that I want out of an album and only really 2 or 3 skips. I'll keep it there for now because The Weeknd might be my next Discog ranking top tier recommend. I absolutely love Space Song and thought that Beach House's Depression Cherry was really vibey, but unfortunately Once Twice Melody just kind of felt flat and boring to me. I wholeheartedly forgot I listened to this and I have not thought about it a single time. Low-key a void. From a Bird's Eye View is a standard rap album from Corday, nothing all too bad, some nice bangers, and in my opinion either a slight step down or equal to his debut album. I did have higher hopes though. Listen if you're a Logic fan. I Know Nego was pretty fun and that's all I wanted from a 2022 producer-led star album. Plus Come On Let's Go is a top 10 track of the year so far in my opinion. Wanted Bad is also a banger, recommend for a fun time. Melt My Eyes See Your Future is another contender for album of the year so far. Maybe my most played album of the year, an emotionally riveting project from Curry and in my opinion his best to date, which is a feat given his downright impressive discography. From Melt Session on, Curry proves why he is a top 3 lyricist in the game right now. The Kurosawa and Western influences and the structure of the project works so well. Production is top tier, the lyrics are top tier, the conceptualization is top tier, and from interviews I could just tell how inspired Curry was making this project and how important this was to him on an emotional and intellectual level. The only minor flaw I have with this project is that it ends a bit slow. Zatoichi is in my cup of tea and Ills is a bit of a downgrade from the highs of the rest of the album. This is another must listen. I Never Liked You has some really bangery bangers, but it's just kind of meh for the most part for me, and I say this given the fact that my first listen was while I drove around Atlanta with this album on full blast, so not much else I could do. It's Almost Dry on the other hand is another contender for album of the year, and once again it's just so good. It just goes hard in the best ways. There's nothing deep about this. Well, there's some deep stuff, but like there's nothing deep about why I think it's good. Pusha T is doing his thing on the mic. Kanye and Pharrell are having a producer off and the Futures are banging too. Must listen here if you're not a Drake fan. Come Home, The Kids Miss You is not the worst thing in the world as some might want you to think, but it is meh and forgettable, which you don't want to be as an album. I genuinely didn't realize that a single song changed after Young Harleasy until I got to like the 10th track, and speaking of Harleasy, I actually do really like the second half of that song. Probably avoid Jack's cool though. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, I just made a big video about Kendrick, so go watch that, which you probably already have because
it's over 9,000! What, 9,000?
I promise I wrote that in when it had just reached 9,000, but y'all keep running it up, which I respect. 12 Karat Toothache to me was Come Home, The Kids Miss You, but with I Never Liked You quality and more than one good song. Ants From Up There is definitely solid, but I don't get all the hype. It's not super re-listenable for me, but I would still give it a light recommendation because it's a good first listen. Great production and solid experimentation, which worked for the most part for me. Drill Music in Zion is probably the last album of the year so far that is a album of the year contender for me. Lupe came in and took his spot as lyricist of the year so far, and while the concept and thematics don't feel as fully realized as they could be and sometimes are reductive, both of these critiques are in a minor manner. Lupe is bringing in some old school vibes with some great production to back him up. Absolute recommend. For God Don't Make Mistakes, just refer to my Ants From Up There segment. Ramona Park Broke My Heart had drill music potential in the first half but fell kind of flat in the second for me. Light recommendation. Okay, that's everything and I think I did it in less than 20 minutes, so if you made it this far, comment your thoughts down below. Here's all of my definite recommendations compiled: movies, shows, albums, and here's 2 videos I recommend for you.